Hey guys, this is Robert. Robert was here for my movie review of Deadpool that came out February 12th. So this is going to be an in-depth review and there will be spoilers. So if you don't want your movie spoiled, don't watch this video. Okay, now that the people that don't want the movie spoiled have left the video, I'm going to go ahead and start my in-depth review. But since I know a lot of people on YouTube and the internet in general are lazy and have low attention spans, I'm going to give you the TLDW of my video. So pretty much Deadpool is an enjoyable film from an action and comedy standpoint that gets bogged down in flashbacks while which literally happen like at the worst times and kind of break up the action. But when the film is not in a flashback, it delivers a nice blend of comedy and action, which makes this movie mindless fun. If you're going into this movie wanting some kick-ass action scenes and or to laugh, then this movie delivers. However, if you're not looking for that, then you might want to just pass on this movie altogether. For casual moviegoers, Deadpool gets 80 cents to the dollar. If you're going into this movie wanting to see some action and or to laugh, then this movie delivers just that. But if you're a Deadpool fan, you might get your full dollar's worth with this film because it's very true to the character and faithful to the source material. And for fangirls like myself, who are huge Deadpool fans and have been following this movie since they've been teasing it, then you will probably get infinity to the dollar for the sheer unlikelihood that this movie was going to get made. Because not only did we get a Deadpool game in 2013, we also got this movie despite all the odds. Now on to my in-depth review of Deadpool. This movie was a long time coming. This was a movie that was in development hell for 10 years. And I'm going to put a picture of Wikipedia here so you can read that story. You can pause it right now if you want to read through all of that to see all the development stuff. But they are pretty much talking about this back in 2009 when Wolverine Origins came off and Deadpool was in that film. If you don't remember him, he kind of looked like this. It was awful, mate. It was pretty bad. And they were talking about having a Deadpool spinoff, and eventually they got around to it. You know, I was a senior or fresh out of high school expecting them to see this movie, and now 6 years later, as a college graduate, I'm finally got to see it. So, is the long-awaited movie, does it live up to its hype, or does it fall flat? Okay, a disclaimer. I'm a huge Deadpool fan, if you haven't guessed by now. And anyone who knows me knows this is a fact. So, I'm gonna still try to give a pretty fair and objective review of this movie, despite me being a fangirl. So, you've been warned. Alright, I'm about to give my opinion on what the Deadpool movie did wrong, and then what it did right, and my overall thoughts. So, starting off with what this movie did wrong, my first issue I had with this movie was the pacing and the flashback sequences. Now, I walked in expecting some of your normal origin story things, you know, like the superhero gets their powers through some absurd method, like getting bit by a spider. And then they start to experiment with their powers, and then they go fight the big bad at the end. Generally, this is what superhero movies follow. And Deadpool decided to mix it up a bit, which I wish they would have kept up with the original formula. So pretty much what they have is the main battle sequence in the beginning on the bridge, where you see Deadpool fight some baddies, and then it stops, and it goes into a flashback with his origin, with Wade Wilson. Then it goes back to him fighting Francis in the movie. Then it goes back, once again, to show how Deadpool got his powers and what his life was like in the facility. And then it goes back to the fight at the bridge, and eventually it catches you up that way. And about midway through the movie, it's like you're all caught up now. Honestly, this made the movie a little bad for me. It made a worse experience because some of the stuff that was said in the movie would have translated better if they just stuck to the chronological order. Example of this is when they have a scene with Francis talking to a client or a potential buyer of some super slaves, and it's mentioned early in the movie that something happened and he wasn't able to get his supply like always, and the person was going to have to wait. But this happens in the beginning of the movie, and by the time you get lost in the flashbacks, you might have forgotten this scene because, well, you're focusing on Deadpool being awesome more than likely. That, and also when Deadpool started off being well, he's not really a hero. When he started his career hunting down Francis, you see him go through his different costumes. It would have made more sense for them to have Blind Al's comment that he should wear red if he's going to plan on bleeding, and then having that comment on the bridge showing that Deadpool learned something along the way. These are just a couple of examples of why I believe that the flashbacks and the pacing of this movie was wrong. It kind of, you go back and forth a lot. If they would have just did one straight line, it would have been better. The development of the Deadpool name. Now, in the movie, they have a Deadpool at this mercenary bar hangout where Wade goes to get his jobs. And Weasel lets Wade know that he voted for him to die in the Deadpool. And then after Deadpool comes back from like all the facility and getting his powers, he's trying to think of a superhero name, and he's like, well, I should call myself Deadpool because you have that Deadpool up there and you voted for me. And while this can work for the film, I think it would have been better if they would have had Deadpool get his name from the facility where he got his powers. Now, in the comics, what had happened was pretty much Wade was there at the Weapons X facility, and they had a Deadpool to see who was gonna die from the experimentation that was going on. As Francis said in the movie, getting superhero powers is not painless, and then some people die in the process. And in the comics, this was the case. And what happened was that Deadpool found Ajax's name, Francis, and he kept taunting him, trying to get Francis to kill him. But Francis was unsuccessful, and then Wade got popular in the little community because of that. And then after his friend Worm died, Deadpool killed Ajax, or Francis, if you will, and then he took on the name of Deadpool from his experiences. Now, the movie had their own way of doing that, which I'm happy they stayed true to the source material. I just don't think it was as well as it could have been. I think they could have gotten away with doing it at the facility. Colossus was ultimately a jobber. I'm a huge X-Men fan, and I'm also a Colossus fan, so it hurts my heart to see him just made into a jobber. He made this lady, Angel Dust, look as though she was a threat while he was fighting her. And I think while she was a threat to Deadpool, a threat to Colossus is a bit of a stretch there. Now, of course, I hadn't heard of this character prior to this movie, so I had to head out and do some research on her. And apparently, Angel Dust's mutant power is that she can elevate her adrenaline levels to give her super strength. However, I doubt that means that she has superhuman durability as well as that. So, I mean, you seen Deadpool hit Colossus earlier and he was breaking his limbs, and she's going there blow for blow with Colossus. None of her limbs are breaking. I don't know if they established this in the movie. Maybe I missed something. If some of you guys watching this know more about Angel Dust or seen her in the comics and can enlighten me about some of the stuff she's able to do, please do so. The pizza stalker job. Yeah, I get they were trying to establish that Wade was a badass before he put on the costume, and how he wasn't a hero because he just did bad things to bad people as a bad person himself. But it just seemed a little out of place for him to just be going after a stalker. Like, I understand that they kept saying he was doing it for charity. This is supposed to be establishing that Wade is like a good person at heart, and that he's not like a typical Merc. But it seems a little odd since like the comic book Wade isn't exactly like that. Don't get me wrong, Wade has his heroic moments in the comics, but he's a mercenary above all. And for him to take on such a job, and especially out in the killing, is just a little odd for me. I would have taken this out and replaced it with something else. Probably establishing more in the facility about how Wade got his powers. The campy ending. I'm not one to dislike happy endings, but I was not expecting that from a Deadpool movie. You see, in the comics, generally, there are bittersweet endings for Deadpool. It's like a small victory, but not everything's perfect. But in this, well, you know, it was a little campy to me. I was actually expecting for Vanessa to die or to dump Wade altogether. I mean, come on, he was butt ugly. Like, you see in his face. So, I found it a little odd that, like, they gave dialogue that hinted like she was resentful towards Wade for leaving her. And then, like, towards the end, she just completely 180 and she's like, well, let's live happily ever after now. And I mean, weren't you just mad at that guy? I mean, I know he just saved your life, kind of, but still, that doesn't change what he did. I mean, in the comics, Deadpool's like a tragic character. So he's like one of those guys who's generally down on his luck and he tries to do the right thing. And even when he does, people still think he's a scumbag. And thus everyone thinks he's annoying and doesn't like him. And so on until like some people actually get to know Wade. So I thought they were going to do like an ending like that. But they went with a happy ending. So I was like, I don't know how to feel about this. This one is a little fanboyish, admittedly, but grievous nonetheless. Where was Death? For anybody that reads Deadpool comics, Death is a pretty crucial part for the character. And I mean, it's like in his origin. I know they're not going to 100% the source material, and I am happy that they did what they did, but Death is such a pivotal character in Deadpool. I mean, when Deadpool originally went to the Weapon X facility, and Francis, or Ajax, was terrorizing him. Well, pretty much torturing. Terrorizing, torturing. It's all the same shit, more or less. He wanted to die. He wanted to be with Death. Because he became interested in Death. She thought he was a pretty cool guy. And then he would constantly taunt Francis by calling him Francis. And then Francis would try to kill him. And each time Francis almost killed him, he would be closer to being with Death. And that's what happened in the comics. So I thought that like they would at least put Death in the film. Now, mind you, I didn't think they were going to make Death the love interest. But, I mean, if they wanted to, they could have. And here's how. While some might consider Deadpool loving Death a little dark, it's still technically true to the source material. And if it were me personally, I would have handled it as such. I would have had Wade go to the facility like he did, and then Ajax explain like how they get the mutant powers from people. But instead, each time where Wade would be tortured and he would be near death, I have him hallucinate. Maybe see like a skeleton in the background or a dark figure, and he's like, "Who is that?" And then whenever Francis left him in that chamber, the oxygen chamber for the weekend, I would have had him get really close to Death during that time, maybe just start talking, maybe he could hallucinate about Vanessa, and then he builds this relationship with Death. So he's like, I want to die, so that when Francis comes back and he's like, hey, I'm just going to keep you in here, and then he gets the match and then he blows the chamber up, he would have done that trying to commit suicide in order to be with Death and be happy. But of course, you know, this is when his healing factor kicks in, and then he finds out that he has healing factor and he can't die. So this is gonna, he'll come back in the fire and they have the fight like they did. And then Deadpool want to get revenge on Francis. But he wants to find a way to kill himself after it's over so he can go be with the entity he loves. Or whatever. It's kind of weird. But, it could go on to where he sees Vanessa and he's like, wow, I forgot how awesome Vanessa is and I really want to be with her. And then towards the end, you can like play the movie like it normally did, and right at the end where he gets stabbed in the head with a knife by Francis, and instead of seeing like the cartoonish hearts and figures and whatever, and making like the heart sign at Vanessa, he could have seen Death standing behind Vanessa, and he could have been like, right now I have an opportunity to die. But if I die, Vanessa will die, and I don't want her to die. So instead, I'm going to choose life, and I'm going to save Vanessa and stop Ajax. And that could have been like symbolic of him choosing not to run away from his problems, aka die, so that he can live and get past his suffering in order to face his problems. And I think that would have been a pretty decent message for the film. I think they could have executed that well, considering how well they did the rest of the script. And I mean, like, this is just, you know, me being a fanboy, like I said in the beginning, but I at least thought Death would make a cameo, and I'm a little disappointed by that. The actors who played Ajax and Angel Dust did really well in their roles, and I do not mean to take anything from them. But I personally would have liked better villains for this movie. And it's unfortunate that there's a lot of those licensing issues that comes with these movies, because me personally, I think the movie would have benefited from a villain like Taskmaster, who is known to interact with Deadpool in the comics. They have a rivalry going on. They're both mercs. after Deadpool found Ajax, for example, and, well, when he found Francis and he stabbed him on the bridge, Francis could have been like, oh crap, Deadpool's gonna, like, kill me, so let me go get some help by finding the other best Merc around, and then he finds Taskmaster, and then him and Taskmaster have a duel at the end of the movie. That would have been freaking awesome. For those of you who don't know who Taskmaster is, it's pretty much like a guy who can copy other people's fighting moves, and he's been able to copy like Captain America with his shield, Hawkeye with the bow, and sword skills. So pretty much he uses a sword, a shield, and he can use a bow. He's very talented, and I'm going to have some pictures of him, hopefully, during this little segment so you can see what he's like. And I think he would have been an excellent antagonist for Wade to fight and try to overcome, because they've met in the comics, and they fought each other, they got the rivalry going on, and I think that would have had some interesting banter between the two. But unfortunately, Taskmaster is an Avengers villain, so I don't think we're going to see the two on screen together. So that's what I believe the movie got wrong. Now, I'm not saying that the movie's bad because they didn't do these things. This is just my opinion about what I thought could have been better. And admittedly, they are nitpicky, but I like to be critical of things even if I enjoy them. So next, I'm going to go on to what this movie did right. Casting Ryan Reynolds. This was like the best decision that they could do. Ryan Reynolds was made for this role. That sounds really cliche. He just really did a good job. How about that? He wasn't like literally made specifically for this role, but dang it, it feels like it sometimes. He caught Wade Wilson perfectly. He nailed Deadpool. He nailed the humor. He was able to play the various moods of Deadpool very well, from being the witty, sarcastic Merc with the mouth, to being the more vulnerable, psychologically damaged Deadpool with the butt-ugly face. He was able to do it. And I think this is in part because he had experience playing Deadpool. For those of you who remember, he was in Wolverine Origins, where he played Deadpool in the beginning of the movie, and then that Baraka Cyclops-like thing ended up at the end of the movie. I don't know who that was. I don't think that was Deadpool. I seen he made a cameo in this movie. But yeah, if you look at this interview from Ryan Reynolds, you can see that he really cared about the character and he respected the character. And I'm going to go ahead and play that little clip now.
Hi Ryan, how are you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Okay, so I've never read an X-Men comic.
Okay.
How close is your character actually to what's in the comics?
Well, he's fairly close in the beginning. Wade Wilson is the guy they call the Merc with the mouth, and he is a mercenary who's quite lethal, but he's also got a bit of a few effervescent witticisms that he likes to share with his coworkers from time to time. Against their will.
He is the comic relief.
A little bit, I suppose. I don't know if it's relieving though.
That's true.
Yeah.
I saw it this morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty lethal.
He's a guy that I wouldn't want to mess with, definitely.
So, and there's also something in the comic where he does look like you. They actually wrote that or something.
Yeah,
Tell me that story.
One of the comic books a long time ago says somebody asks, or he compares himself to a Sharpay and Ryan Reynolds. Is what he says he looks like. He says, I look like a cross between a Sharpay and Ryan Reynolds. And
have you ever actually figured out what that would look like if you mixed yourself with a Sharpay?
I don't know if I'd want to. I think it would just like enormously unkempt eyebrows. Yes, I think so. I think that would be what mostly that would look like. I'm not sure.
All right. So would you return to this? I mean, obviously there's a chance that you will return. Is it something you want to do?
Absolutely. I mean, the character I've wanted to do for forever. So, I mean, I feel like this is only a brief introduction to who Wade Wilson and Deadpool is. So, I think their idea is the reason they want him in the movie is to spin him off. So,
as an actor, which was it more fun to actually get into though? Because you do very different things as the two things.
You mean the two different characters I play in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, I like them both. I mean, it's pretty awful when your mouth is sewn up, though. It makes lunch a sad place.
Ryan Reynolds nailed this position. He nailed this role. Wow. I feel sorry for the guy who wants to play Deadpool after Ryan Reynolds. Just like I feel like the guy that has to play Wolverine after Hugh Jackman and who has to play Iron Man after Robert Downey Jr. Like they set the bar so high that it's going to be hard to fill those shoes. And I think when we do inevitably get a new Deadpool, hopefully, fingers crossed, when Ryan Reynolds retires the character, that the new guy can try to live up to the name that Ryan, or the bar that Ryan has set up. And I mean, a lot of people was getting Ryan crap for like the Green Lantern movie, and he did make jabs about it in the movie if like you were paying attention to it, which is pretty cool. And Ryan Reynolds was actually mentioned in the comics before, but like there were some people that were doubting him because of that, but he proved them wrong. I'm pretty sure they are just sitting there like, you know what? They eating that big old slice of humble pie. Ryan Reynolds did an excellent job as Deadpool. Not only that, he was advocating for this film to get made. While this movie was on my radar before it was made, when they just had the script, it was like Ryan Reynolds willing to play the Deadpool role, and he was trying to get this movie made, and he was happy when that video test footage got leaked, and he was like, yes, this is happening. And then when they casted Ryan Reynolds, I was like, yes, you deserve this. You were advocating for this for the longest, and you're a fan. Please get the role. Do a great job. He did. I can't say any more good about the guy. This movie did not take itself too seriously, and as such, it was able to be a little self-aware. What I mean by that is that it was able to be an action movie, but be aware that it was an action movie. Kind of like, you know, 90s action movies where they're cheesy, but they're not aware that they're cheesy, but they're awesome for it. This movie knew it was cheesy, and it cashed in on it. And I think that was an excellent thing to do. It's very hard to make a comedy movie. From a personal standpoint, comedy is a very thin line between being funny and being annoying. And that's a line that a character like Deadpool has to constantly tread lightly on, because there are many representations of Deadpool where he stops being witty and he starts to be random. And I have the definition here so you can know what I'm talking about. And this movie capitalized on the witty aspects of the character and didn't just do random things for trying to be funny. And I think that is where this movie flourished. They were able to break the fourth wall just enough to establish that he breaks the fourth wall, even make their own little original jokes with the 16 wall breaking, and then still keep the movie going. And it didn't get annoying. Now, in other instances of Deadpool, the first one that comes to mind is Ultimate Spider-Man's appearance. He constantly did it, and it was kind of annoying. The supporting cast for this movie did an excellent job, and I cannot thank them enough. Honestly, Ryan Reynolds alone would not have sold this movie. If it was not for this supporting cast, the movie would not have been as successful, in my opinion. And, you know, being able to bounce jokes off of the supporting cast definitely made this movie better. So I can't say enough for the supporting cast. They did a really great job. I would name them all, but instead I'm going to be lazy and just link the IMDb page so you can go through and just look at them. My boy Colossus, he was awesome in this movie. I'm a fan of Colossus. He's like a fan favorite X-Men who has been getting less than desirable treatment from Fox in the X-Men movies. I feel as though he's not represented well in those movies. He never had his time to shine. Like, he shows up a couple of times and like he has a, hey look, I can turn my body into steel. But in this movie, they captured Colossus perfectly. When he's sitting there with his bowl of cereal, looking at the news, sees Deadpool doing some stuff on the highway, he's like, okay, I gotta go get this guy. Like, we keep giving him chances and he keeps messing up. It shows that Colossus wants Deadpool to become a good guy. He has faith in Wade, which is great. Definitely great. And his banter with Negasonic Teenage Warhead when they were talking about breakfast was great. It is classic Colossus. You can tell he cares deeply for the X-Men. He loves doing what he does. And seeing when he finally does catch up with Deadpool, and seeing Deadpool get mad after Francis leaves and try to take his rage out on Colossus was hilarious and probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole film. As Deadpool's sitting there hitting this guy and breaking his hands and his arm, his hands, his legs, and he's like, wow, I'm so angry, but dang, you're really powerful. That was hilarious. He pretty much beat Deadpool without lifting a finger, which is awesome. They did the character some justice, finally, because in Days of Future Past, he did get some cool action scenes, but they split him in half like a Kit Kat. And luckily, I can remember this Colossus when I think about how awesome he is in the movies. The X-Men Cinematic Universe. I could say that this is the official start of the X-Men Cinematic Universe, as Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead was in this film, both X-Men crossovering over in a Deadpool film. This worked. It felt natural, you know, that these worlds would be intertwined, and even Deadpool made a joke about the two different Professor Xaviers in like the two different X-Men movies with Patrick Stewart and the other guy whose name I forgot. And then him saying how confusing the timelines are, which is pretty much every every fan of X-Men know that sometimes it gets a little convoluted with all time traveling. So pretty much that the fact that they did this was such a win. When they first announced Colossus for this film, I got even happier. I was happy to get a Deadpool film, even happier to get an X-Men, especially a fan favorite like Colossus in this film. And the fact that it wasn't just a cameo, I thought it was just going to be like, oh, he's going to have one scene with Colossus in there, and then that's going to be it. No, Colossus and his little buddy are in there as supporting roles, which is, it makes the movie better. Towards the end, where they all go to face Ajax and save Vanessa, it worked. Seeing that team with Deadpool made it better. Now, a problem that I thought they might have had with this movie is that they were going to try to capitalize only on Deadpool. And, you know, Deadpool by himself can only go so far if he's not bouncing jokes off of people. This is why some people don't like Daniel Way's run. And some fans are divided on the Deadpool that was represented for a while, especially in the video game. If you played the video game, you know about the voice boxes where he has different voices in his head because he's crazy. But that wasn't what Deadpool was about with Joe Kelly's original run and everyone else's run of Deadpool. That was like a new thing. And a lot of fans didn't like that because they felt as though they took a character with depth who was flawed and they kind of made him into a random meme generator that just constantly put out references to be funny. And after going back and reading Deadpool Classic up to like volume, I think I'm at 7 out of 9 or something like that. I see the original Deadpool they were talking about, and I definitely prefer the badass Deadpool from that instead of the kind of loser Deadpool from Daniel Way's run where he just makes jokes and then gets like clobbered most of the time. So I'm glad that they decided to include the X-Men universe, or the cinematic universe. I'm glad they decided to make that so Deadpool would have people to interact with so he can be more entertaining when he's bouncing dialogue off of people. The good cop, bad cop that Colossus and Deadpool provided for this film worked. That was great. And right now, I think Fox is in an excellent position to capitalize on the lack of rated R films and superhero movies. I think like they're in a really good position. You know, DC makes the dark, gritty movies like the Dark Knight trilogy, Man of Steel, and likely the new Batman Superman movie coming out later this year. And you know that Disney's Marvel movies, they're campy, they have the colorful costumes, and it's family friendly. Like the Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man. I feel as though Fox is in a position to get their own foot in a territory that neither of these will be able to touch. Because Marvel has some interesting superheroes with the X-Men, and they have some pretty dark stories in the comics that they can translate into films, which would be interesting. Let's have our fingers crossed that they make an X-Force. Hopefully they do. That would be freaking awesome. It's pretty much, for those who don't know what X-Force is, it's like the X-Men with assassins. It's the assassins of the X-Men. They send people like Wolverine, Psylocke, Cable. They had Deadpool on the team, an Uncanny X-Force. And they go and they do what the X-Men can't do. When it involves killing someone to get them out of the way, that's what X-Force does. And I think it will make an excellent movie. And I really hope Fox considers making that movie. The best aspects of this film, arguably the best for me personally, is how truthful they stay to the source material and how they stand right by their fans. They did an excellent job. And if you read the Deadpool comics, I'm pretty sure there are some things that you picked up on that some people who are unfamiliar with Deadpool was like, wait, what? So I was really excited for this film because I'm a superhero fan, but a lot of superhero movies that come out, I don't know like everything about the character. Like I'm a fan of the character like Spider-Man. I watched the animated series. I know a little bit about him, but I didn't know everything. So when the Spider-Man movies come out, I'm like, I'm glad it's Spider-Man, but I'm not like the Spider-Man fan. But with Deadpool, I read the comics. read Deadpool Classic, I read Daniel Way's run, I've been reading the current run, and I've read, of course, like the spinoffs and, well, some of the spinoffs, like the team-ups and stuff. So I finally knew a lot about the character, and being able to see that in the film just enhanced the movie experience for me. When they announced, like, Weasel and Blind Owl, I was like, I know who those guys are. When they announced the villain, I was like, I know who that guy is, too. And in the movie where he stops and he says Bob, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Bob, Agent of Hydra, in this movie. Totally unexpected for me. I was so happy to see it. And I know some people were looking like, Bob, who's Bob? And I'm like, yes, I know who Bob is. That made me feel special because I'm a special snowflake. But yeah, besides that, they also kept Deadpool's psychological issues with his face. And you notice that when he didn't go confront Vanessa after he got out of the Weapons X facility, how he was hesitant. He's like, oh man, I am butt ugly. Now in the comics, he did the same thing. He identified with the Deadpool mask to where when he was fighting Juggernaut, yes, Deadpool fought Juggernaut, and Juggernaut knocked off his mask. He was like, no, give me back my face. And when you took his mask off, he was freaked the fuck out. And the fact that they kept that in the films made it even better. Let's not forget that this is like the best thank you to the fans who have been supporting this movie since it was in development hell for 10 years. And they've been wanting this movie to come out. And they've been hoping and wishing and pleading. Some people even made petitions that this movie would come out. When they released the script and it got leaked, they showed positive, they appreciate the script. When they had that leaked trailer, they hit on it on YouTube. Even though they tried to take it down, people downloaded it, re-uploaded it to get the hype and to get people talking about this movie, asking Fox, why haven't you made this movie yet? This looks awesome. If you just give us this, we'll be happy. And the fact that Fox came through, finally, and gave us a Deadpool film after a long time of waiting. Like, remember, I was out of high school when I was waiting for this film. Like, we're talking like 18. I was like 18, 19. I'm 24 going on 25. I've been waiting for this film for that long. And the fact that they did it is amazing. Even better that they did it on Deadpool's 25th anniversary. Because for those of you who don't know, Deadpool came out in February of 1991. I've been looking for the exact date, but I haven't been able to find it yet. But this is his anniversary month. So the film coming out during this month is a pretty big deal. And I know that the Deadpool 21st anniversary edition of the comic is available at your local comic book stores if you want to go pick that up. It has 81 issues. It's $9.99, which is pricey for a comic, which is a little odd for me. But hey, the Merc with the mouth, happy 25th anniversary. I'm a huge fan. Thank you for all the laughs and making this movie better. All in all, this movie is a win for Deadpool fans. And it's likely to go on to become a cult classic because of that. So, is this movie perfect? No. Is everyone going to love this movie? No. If you don't like comedy movies, like immature comedy movies, you're not going to like this film. If you don't like action movies, you're probably not going to like this film. And if you're looking for something family-friendly, why are you looking at Deadpool for family-friendly? Like that petition I was going around for a PG-13 family-friendly version of Deadpool, I'm like, no. I'm sorry, kid, I know that you're a fan of Deadpool, but no. They want this rated R, let them make it rated R. So, this is a legit movie. It gets Robert seal of approval. I definitely recommend this, especially to Deadpool fans. This is made for you guys and gals and whatever else. So I definitely recommend that you go check this out. Now, to get to my summary. Now, like I said in the beginning, pretty much Deadpool has a blend of comedy and action. That's kind of bogged down by like the flashback sequences that kind of like hold back from the main plot. But when it's not in the flashback, this movie is a blast. It delivers the action. It delivers the laughs. And if you're going with the intention to laugh and or watch action scenes, you will like this movie more than likely. And if you do not want that from your movie, then you're probably not going to like this. So with that said, I'm going to give this movie a fair 80 cents to the dollar. Because if you're going for action and comedy, this movie delivers that. And for fans of Deadpool, you might go ahead and get your full dollar's worth out of this. Because you're going to like how true to the character it is, how faithful to the comics it is, or that it's just freaking awesome. Being like even the opening sequence where they are making like the cliches for the characters that show up instead of like having their names, or the ending sequence, which is a little weird at parts with unicorns, but hey, whatever. And even maybe the after credits scene, to where like they're saying that they're gonna put Cable in, because Cable and Deadpool is kind of a big deal, just a little bit. You know, I'm hoping they do that sequel there. Honestly, even if you were to take Deadpool out of this movie and just enter some generic random person, I probably would still enjoy this film's writing and script for what it is. And because it's Deadpool, of course, it enhances the film for me a little bit more. Now, I thought that there were some aspects of the film that I didn't like, that I explained in what I didn't like about it, but they are completely outweighed by the positives. This movie was a blast to go watch. I've seen it twice as of this recording. I've seen it February 11th at an early screening with the hype crowd, you know, that laughs and they like they're really interactive with the movie. I seen it there and it was freaking awesome. I seen it today, Valentine's Day, with my wife, and while the crowd wasn't as hype, it was still pretty enjoyable. They were a little bit more laid back, and I was seeing the movie after knowing the jokes, after knowing what was going to happen, knowing the action scenes, and I was still looking forward to what was going to happen next, instead of being like, oh, I gotta wait for some boring thing. So this was a win for me. Two view-throughs, and I am still in support of this movie. This is a great movie. I actually believe that. It has been a long time coming, but Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire has finally been dethroned as my favorite comic book movie. Ryan Reynolds knocked this out of the park. The writers knocked it out of the park. The supporting staff knocked it out of the park. This was just a ball of freaking awesomeness. Deadpool awesomeness. So if you've seen this review and you've seen that there's something you might like from this movie, go see it. And if you've looked at this and like, yeah, I still want to pass on it, hey, that's fine too. It's not for everybody. But that pretty much sums up my in-depth review of Deadpool. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you have some points that I didn't address, or if there are some aspects that you liked, or if you disagree with me, so on and so forth. You know, just a discussion. It'd be pretty cool to hear what other people think about this movie, just to make sure I don't have my fangirl glasses on. So with that said, that is my 2 cents, and I will see you guys in my next movie review.